do you kind of want to give yourself a quick introduction to chat for those who don't know?
Sure. Well, my name is SVB. I make educational YouTube videos. I used to play a lot of tank. Recently, I don't have that much. Haven't had that much time to play anymore. But yeah, lots of tank. Peak at top 500. But now I'm kind of garbage. So don't let that deceive
Chat
you.
knows all about that.
I mean, everybody's been through the same thing, right? We're all sort of dreaming of the highest rank that we got to, trying to get back there. But yeah, I'm delighted to be here with Spilo, and glad we finally got to do the collab.
I'm excited as well. So we're going over, I believe, Platinum Orisa. Let me make sure that this is actually Platinum Orisa. I believe it is. Anyway.
I think they said 3,200, but that might have been their peak.
Yep. No, you're right. Yep. It's mid Diamond Orisa, Horizon Lunar Colony. Like, I guess before we get into the VOD, what is kind of something that you always look for immediate improvement on the Orisas you coach? What is something that you see maybe at this rank or around this rank that you think Orisas need a lot of work on generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, with tank play, I think even all the way up to GM, it's quite fundamentally misplayed, I think. And obviously with someone like Orisa, 90% of Orisa play is shield play, right? You're no offense to Orisa, I play a lot of Orisa, but mostly you're just there for your shielding. And if you get that wrong, if your angles are wrong, if your management is wrong, if your cooldown usage is wrong, you're going to get tremendously lower value. So I always look for, whenever I see an Orisa player, do they understand the fundamentals of shielding? And that's obviously what's the word I'm looking for? Transferable to other tanks too. You know, Reinhardt is same concept. Obviously, just he's the mobile shield. Sigma now, obviously, same concept. Do you know where your shield should be going roughly? Do you not? I don't know if you agree, Spilo. What's your take?
I definitely agree. I think it's very easy to just kind of put down shield and shoot at the enemy team, but obviously there's a lot of nuances with everything that you do. Like you said, the angles and the you really are, like, the difference between Orisa and other tanks is, so at least with Ryan, is when you put down your shield, you've made a selection, and now for 9 seconds you're not changing that position. So you need to be very clinical and very consider the options very carefully when you do place down that shield. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I think you should be able to press play if you'd like.
Sure thing. Yeah, sure
thing. Be ready to
roll. So we're the players in chat. I assume. Are they? They're not going to listen to the direct live feed.
Potentially, I'm not sure. They're not actually in the call, no.
Okay. So, yeah, if I hit play now, we're going to see the first fight. Is everything good on your end?
Yep, looks fine on my end. Yep.
Okay, so first thing I wanted to know, actually, right off the bat, I saw this player. So we see them run right through, and this was really, really odd right from the go from watching an Orisa player, because this is much more something you'd see with a Reinhardt-based comp, someone just trying to run their way straight on the point. And what you'll see here is this player takes a crap ton of entry damage just as they're walking towards point. You can see there, they go all the way down. I've forgotten how to use the... Here we go. They all the way down to 150 HP just on the first run. And they've left their team behind and left their shield behind. So this was very bizarre to me. And the first thing this signaled is that basically this player is not comfortable playing Orisa, is not naturally an Orisa player. And I believe you told me, Spilo, that this player is generally an off-tank player and is just kind of flexing onto Orisa. Yeah, so it just seems here that the player doesn't understand what their shield is supposed to do. Now, obviously, the shield is there to protect your teammates and give them a chance to go through. Instead, this player kind of drops Masar Yaroki. I think that's... I don't know how it's pronounced.
Close enough. That's as close as I could ever get it.
I'll just go with my man. My man here drops the shield and then just immediately proceeds to run past it, and the shield doesn't really help much. So my first point would be, why are you playing Orisa like a different tank, right? If you're whatever hero you're playing, you have to be willing to adapt and get into the mindset of that hero. In this case, the player is playing Orisa like a completely different hero when they could easily slow push this, which is generally what you're going to be doing with an Orisa, and taking this over multiple shields. One here, get inside the room. If you are intent on going this way, then one here, slowly. That's the process of 3 shield that this player kind of drops with 1 and runs straight on the point. Right. So although they don't immediately die,
it feels like we're running a Reinhardt Lucio comp or something. Almost how we're playing it. It's kind of strange. Like we're trying this fast rotation, but I'm even looking at their composition and I'm going, why are we rushing? They don't have any poke damage at all, and they have a Reinhardt shield, right? So we just can sit in main for a little bit, and if we do want to rotate, like you said, we do have the capability to rotate slowly. We're not going to get spammed out. So it does. This whole rotation is very strange.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think they die this first time, and then they do the same thing roughly the second time. And what that signals to me is that this player hasn't really taken this game as an individual game. They've kind of have a mindset probably about Horizon in general, that this is the path you want to take, that this is the route you want to go, and that's how they've played regardless of whatever hero they're picking and whatever the enemy team has picked. And that's obviously not the way to go. If you look at their comp, for example, they've picked a rather bizarre comp for Horizon A as well, because they've got a very, very short range comp. Doomfist Reaper obviously is very strong right now, but generally you'd see that with the Sigma Orisa. And with this Reinhardt ball, which is a bizarre tank line, they really have no range, they have no spam. So the Orisa shield is under no pressure, and taking high ground off these guys should be very, very easy, but instead our player opts twice in a row to go down the left-hand side, rush, like you said, as if they were playing a Lucio Rhine, and also go straight on the point, despite the fact that their comp is far better at outranging the other comp.
Right. Do you want to talk a little bit about tempo? I don't want to get sucked in before the FOD gets too far in, but like you're kind of talking about like short range and long range and spam and Lucio Rhine versus Orisa. Like generally, if you're playing an Orisa versus a Reinhardt, what tempo are you like? How fast do you want that fight to go? Exactly. I guess would be the question.
Obviously, you want it to go slower, right? Ultimately, the longer range you have, the more time you can buy yourself, and the shorter range you are, the less time you have in between fights. And I made a video a while back about phases in Overwatch, and the kind of what I would call 3 phases, where the first one being the grouping phase. You're waiting with your team, you're resetting whatever it is, you're waiting to set up your engagement. Then you go into the engagement phase, which can be long or short depending on the comp you're running, where you're essentially trying to get into position to start the fight, and then finally get into the actual fight, the fighting phase, and that's where your fight takes place. Now, obviously, the shorter your range your comp is, the less time you can spend getting to the last stage, right? Because if you don't have range, you're going to lose every shield war, basically. So you need to get into fighting range ASAP. With the Orisa comp, you have, in this setup, you're running Orisa, you're running Hog. You've got crap ton of shield break. They're running Ryan, they're running Hammond, they've got no shield break, meaning that you've got all the time in the world. You can take it as slowly as you want. You can whittle down their shields, and when they're pressured out, that's when you make your move. If you rush to point, as we've seen this player do repeatedly, you're giving them exactly what they want, which is a quick fight, because they're lacking range. They don't have any real great way of engagement. They don't even have a Lucio to actually speed. So these guys want the fight to start as quickly as possible, because they can't engage with you at a longer distance at a slower pace. So yeah, the tempo assessment here, as you're suggesting here, Spilo, is definitely way off here. I don't know if you'd agree.
No, I definitely agree. Yep. Okay. Guess we keep.
So let's carry on then. So I think this is now the second engagement. Now this Reaper gets caught by our friendly Hog, which is a nice opening pick. But again, we see here the player doing the same thing, just rushing straight on to point. Haven't even dropped a shield at all at this point. So at this point, I'd have to question why you're even picking Orisa if you're not going to use the shield, and if you're not going to slow push. This is much more of a Reinhardt style play. And then the player drops the shield, which is where I want to start the first point about shield management. And like I said, Orisa, obviously 90% how you're shielding, where you're shielding. So if we take it back a second, watch where the shield gets dropped. I'd have to really question again what this angle is here, and I wish we could have had like a top down here, but when we'll see in a better angle in a second. What does the shield actually cover, and who does it actually cover? At this point, absolutely no one, because our player has left most of their team behind, because they straight made a sprint for point. And most of their team, well, we've seen the McCree's already dead, and I think most of their team is kind of hanging around either here or around this corner. So no one is really actually being shielded by the shield other than our Orisa player. And generally, you always want to be thinking about angles. Whenever you place your shield, if I drop it at this angle, what am I covering? And in this case, it's sort of a rather middle of the... this is a great angle to see it, actually. This is a very middle-of-the-road shield, because it's very easily circumvented. As you can see already, people have walked around the side. This Reinhardt can just walk past it. And generally, it's not achieving a tremendous amount. We're getting kills external to this. The kills that are coming through are not as a consequence of this shield. They're despite this shield.
Right,
in reality, what I would suggest is somewhere this angle is much better, because at least there's natural cover around the shield. or this angle here. Whereas this angle, I don't know if you agree, Spilo, but it feels to me like the player has just dropped the shield in a panic.
It does, and like you said, like we talked about the enemy team's composition, they're a very short-range composition, so we would like to place a shield where we can still force point pressure, maybe from right here, but to where there's more of a distance from the angles where the enemy team is going to be coming. That is a terrible color. But there's more distance, so the Rhine, like you said, doesn't just immediately walk through and start swinging on top of us, or that the ball doesn't just immediately pile drive us from the high ground up here, or the Doomfist doesn't just turn a corner and punch us immediately. The Reaper doesn't just turn a corner and walk through the shield and shoot us in the face. Like, there is some sort of distance that's playing closer to how fast or slow that we want to play this fight. And like you said, they turn the corner, they throw down the shield, but the shield does almost absolutely nothing. Almost absolutely nothing. The Rhine goes right through it. The Reaper can go right through it. The Doomfist can go right through it. The ball can go right through it. And so, like you said, it's not only is it a bad angle, it's also way too close. We want to be kind of playing further back. It doesn't seem like this Orisa is really considering, hey, this team wants to brawl. I want to shoot them and halt them back. So I'm going to play slower. It doesn't seem like that thought has ever crossed their mind.
No, and that's where I think our first two concepts are very evident here. The first one being tempo. What is your composition looking for versus their composition, and then the absolute key of any main tank is your shield. Well, most main tanks, you're shielding. Where are you shielding? Why are you shielding? In this case, they actually win this fight, but like we've said, kind of despite the shielding. So that's something for this player to bear in mind. Also, another thing to note is that they didn't ever try to contest the high ground. As I mentioned, their comp definitely has the range advantage on the enemy team comp, and yet they never actually tried to take the high ground, try to take that away from them. So
can we talk about that really quick? Because I think that's really important. So you're talking about, if you have more range, you kind of look to abuse high ground. Now, why is that, and how would you go about doing that if we could have replayed the previous fights differently? How would you have done that?
Yeah, sure. So again, just to go over the absolute basics.
We're gonna rewind about 6 hours.
I know, it's just like that fight went straight to point. Okay, so for anyone who's unsure, obviously the advantage of having high ground and having range on the enemy team when you're having high ground, when you have the range advantage, is that obviously the enemy team will struggle to contest it. Once you can force them off, let's say the enemy team with their Reinhardt base comp are on point, they're sitting here, and you manage to get, we'll talk through how you get up here in a second, but you manage to get this angle here and you're spamming through this window or that little slight angle there. How are they supposed to answer this? How are they supposed to answer the damage you're doing? They cannot. The Reaper can't do anything from there. The Doomfist has to come up to you before you can do anything. The Petite is not going to do enough damage. The Reinhardt and the Wrecking Ball rather are certainly not going to do enough damage. Meanwhile, you have a Hog who can consistently not only spam right clicks, but also you can use the halt hook combo to try and hook somebody in. That's a free kill. You have a McCree who can continually plink away. And should you need, your Doomfist can always jump in and start trying to hurt people. Your Ana can chuck nades from the high ground. So as you can see already, these two compositions, this one is so much more favored at a longer distance than this one. So the number one thing you want to do is try and claim that range advantage. And with high ground, it basically makes no easy way for them to actually come up to you. So this player here, instead of going right as they do in a second, they could have easily walked up these stairs. They could have easily gone the far right side, all the way around, which is normally the route players often take, and usually where defenders hold. Because if you slow push this up, again, like we talked about with the Orisa, you very rarely can just rush your way through to victory with the Orisa, especially when you don't have a Lucio in play. It's not like Reinhardt where you just press W, you get in their face, you start swinging, because at close range, Orisa does fundamentally no more or less damage than she does at long range. So she's going into someone else's effective range while not benefiting herself any.
Right. So you're saying if we are on high ground against, as a higher damage comp against a comp with less spam, the comp that's on the low ground has either a really difficult job or has no capability of actually getting to and brawling with us at all.
Exactly, yeah.
And if the tables are turned, if they're the ones on high ground and we're the ones on low ground, it's hard for us to get good spam on them, and then they can just drop on us immediately without taking too much spam of their own. So it makes more sense, especially in this circumstance, for us to try and, if we can, to find a way to get to high ground if possible.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's a very good point you mentioned about the drop. Basically, the people who have the high ground, not to reference episode 3 Star Wars here, but once you get the high ground, you kind of control the fight, right? You kind of decide when the engagement is going to begin. If they're on the high ground, like you said, they can drop on you at any point. But if you're on the high ground, you can decide when you want to drop, right? You can take it at your pace. So
Okay.
Learn from Obi-Wan.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Alrighty, thank you. We guess we could move on from there. That answers
Yeah. So
question.
moving on. Let's let's find back when we were.
Close enough.
Okay. Sure. So this time we're gonna see they are gonna try and take the high ground. No, wait. I forgot. They debate us. They actually go down main, and we're gonna see here the second thing that I wanted to kind of focus on is that this player often throws their shield and then ignores it. So we saw this initially in the first ever fight where they dropped the shield and they ran all the way to point, and now we've seen the same thing there where the players committed their shield. 4 seconds left on the cooldown. Now they're gonna run the point, and this is gonna lead to a series of mistakes, which basically leads to this player's death. So now halfway through the fight when the player's 98 HP is when we drop their first shield. And where's the shield again? It's a panic shield that covers a terrible angle. No one's actually protected. All the team is actually here. At this point, the player's not even protecting themselves with their own shield. And this fight is going to end pretty badly, if I recall. I think they're going to die in a second. But essentially, that all starts from one. Yeah, the Reaper's not going to get in their face. Again, the shield drops, but it's at a really awkward angle, protects nobody. And the player's going to die in a couple seconds, despite the best attempts from their Moira to save them. So if we go back to the start of that fight, again, the idea of tempo, and again, the idea of shield placement. So the player's about to take high ground, and for whatever reason, they decide they're going to run down main. And then they misunderstand that, of course, with Orisa, you can play slowly. So they drop this shield, and they're like, shit, I got to go to point. Run. Start running on the point before they're themselves ready. And they give the enemy team a complete advantage, and they completely blow the entire point of Orisa, which is essentially the strongest shield in the game.
Right.
So gives away all their own advantages while making it better for the enemy team. And yeah, there you go. So as you can see, the shield already dies, already breaks.
What about in terms of pathing on this map? So like we clearly go down main here, but do we think going left or trying to clear right high ground would have been more useful, the composition we're running, than going through main?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were kind of alluding to on the first point, is having high ground is very powerful, and having range in this setup when you outrange the enemy team, having range on them is always strong. Going down main is basically the worst decision you could make in this scenario, because you're getting neither or, right? You're neither getting range on them, neither are you getting high ground on them. The same problem as before. At the minute you get, let's say this is point, the minute you get on the point, they're on the high ground. They can decide when they want to drop on you, and immediately as they drop on you, they're short range on you. So, yeah, you kind of either want to try and wrestle the high ground off them, or you take the long side, which is the left side, and then at least you have range on them. And then when you force them to drop, you can at least do a lot of damage from a good distance.
Right. You want to avoid playing positions that are directly underneath high ground if you're not going to take that high ground, because exactly like you said, there's no range that you can shoot them at. They just drop on you and surround you, and then you're dead. So okay. Exactly.
Yeah. So let's forward to the next fight, because I think we're going to see the same kind of theme emerge. A lot of waiting around as Orisa. Okay, so next fight, they get to the high ground. This time they're trying to win their way to the high ground. Now, one thing I didn't like here from both sides is that the enemy team pops a Batiste ult, who has absolutely no one to follow up on his Batiste ult. But the Orisa player doesn't respect it at all. So you can see they're still poking this. They eventually get punched back by a Doomfist. But they don't respect the amplification matrix at all. And actually, I believe their Ana tastes a face full of Fire Strike for that reason. So I like what I would recommend. This doesn't necessarily cost them in this immediate fight, but of course these things we're trying to learn for your general principle, right? We're not trying to learn for just one game. We're trying to learn for the entirety of your career. And if the enemy Batiste drops amplification matrix like this in your face before the fight has begun, just go around the corner. Nothing, no reason for you to continue to poke this fight. They've just committed a really good ultimate for no reason. Wait out the 10 seconds or whatever it is that the amplification matrix lasts, and then you go afterwards. In this case, they continue this fight. They continue to poke. Another really poor cooldown usage from the enemy Batiste. And then they drop the Supercharger. They're going to push forward now in a slightly questionable position, but at least the team are pushing forward. They're gonna get this high ground off them. And actually, you can see this fight starts off very well for them, but where it starts going poorly is that they're going to do the same thing now. They're going to drop, and look at the shield positioning, Spilo. This is, again, a really, really bizarre shield positioning. What does this cover? Who's this cover? Again, remember, you're trying to cover angles, guys. You're trying to cover corners. You're trying to cover natural covers. So always try and take the sort of the furthest corner that you can with Orisa. So in this case, something like here, something like here. Instead, this shield gets dropped just in the middle of the point. Anyone can circumvent this. Anyone can drop over this. And now you've also given up the slight high ground advantage that you had. So I think this fight goes relatively well for them. But a couple of mistakes there that in a different scenario I think would have really cost them. And I don't know if you have anything to add on that scenario.
I would say that obviously, as you said, it wasn't played perfectly, but the fact that we won this fight is a testament that we actually cleared the high ground, that we took the fight in the location where we should have taken it earlier. So, like, there's no accident that the fight that we did win was the one where we actually cleared high ground. Like, they couldn't, we had a Junkrat, they can't stay up there. Like, they're not going to be able to stand and just get abused at that choke. So, you know, the shield placement's clearly poor, but at the very least, we got the minimum. At the very least, we got the minimum.
Yeah, exactly. So we as you said there, if you just quickly go back to the comps that start the fight on the high ground, you can clearly see that this comp is going to win out because neither is the Doom or the Reaper actually here at this point. Whereas you've got a nano boosted Hog, I believe, in a second, a Supercharge with your Moira, and now your Doomfist is punching in, like you said, the Junkrat. How are you supposed to beat a Junkrat in this tight corridor? So, yeah. Identify the win condition, identify what their win condition is, and try to defeat. That's what happens accidentally or deliberately, and yeah, it leads to a successful fight. So now let's see if we can fast forward because I think this is where they almost. I think do they get this point? I can't remember now, Spilo.
I'm not sure.
Let's find out. Let's find out together, chat. The drama.
Oh no, coalescence.
No, yeah. Okay, so they die. So let's just go back see what actually happens there. I think basically. In the long fight, they're able to get their stagger spawns back. And again, I have to question our players' shielding because at this point they're providing little to nothing as in way of protection for their team. Most of the fight is going. Yeah, there you go. So do you want to mention about the bongo, Spilo?
I mean, if you can move, it takes half a second to move from where we were here to placing bongo here, like half a second, and it makes it 10 times as hard to kill, and it doesn't affect its LOS at all. So just take a second, take a second, and it would have also matched what you were saying about shield placement. Like instead of shielding on here, you place your bongo here, you place your new shield back here, and then you have all of your angles opened, and you kind of create yourself a little bit of distance. There's a question in chat, a little bit general, if you can, like we've kind of already touched on it, but super quickly, if you just want to answer it like as simply as best as you can. If you haven't already talked, could you give us a basic explanation of shield usage with respect to tempo? So I guess with Orisa, if you're playing a fast tempo, like a slow tempo, just basically what are you looking for in a shield?
Yeah, so obviously, generally we've talked about how Orisa generally wants to take things slowly. You want to incrementally gain advantages. You want to slightly win the shield war so that their shield is breaking faster, and then you're eventually pushing slightly forward every time their shield is breaking and they're forced to back up. But of course, tempo can be something that's fluid. So in certain scenarios, let's say in this scenario, when we saw on the high ground there, you drop your shield, you start doing lots of damage, you break the enemy Reinhardt shield, you kill a couple of his teammates. Now what you've got is an opportunity. So that basically means you speed your tempo, right? When you, I think Mineral refers to it as a tempo shift, and I know you've done videos with Mineral as well. Is that once you have that advantage, you now have a go button. It's like go. Okay, we've got 2 kills. Go to fight. We're gonna fight. So that's your trigger to jump in on point, drop a shield down, and try and take the fight. But most of the times with Orisa, you're trying to play it a much more considered manner, in which case essentially your shield should always be at a safe enough distance that they can't essentially walk past the shield or easily get to the shield, while you're safe, able to do damage, able to, like I said, win that shield war, get that incremental advantage, and then you slowly inch forwards, making sure safety is basically your number one priority with Orisa. So yeah, slow and safe until you have an opportunity, and then you push forward.
And something that SRU is asking, I hear win conditions talked about. I don't know how to determine what the win condition is in a situation. Basically, the only thing that you need to concern yourself about 99% of the time, at least until you actually get to more advanced team play, is do you guys want to play slow or do you guys want to play fast? That's the only question you have to really ask yourself. Like look at the level of damage. Look at are they running dive heroes? Are they running snipers? Do they want to play slow? Or do you want to play fast? And then basically change your win, like how you play accordingly to that. If you're playing into spam, they want to play slow. If you're playing the snipers, they want to play slow. If you're playing brawl, if you're playing dive, you want to play fast. And generally, like SVB is saying in this situation, when you're playing Orisa is generally a slower tank. She doesn't brawl super well. She can't dive, obviously, and she is the only like main tank with a significant damage output. You have the ability to halt people, you can shoot them, yada yada yada. So when you're playing Orisa, generally you'll want to play slower. And what we're seeing with this tank play is that a tank that's not prioritizing that slower tempo. And it doesn't you don't have to be a top tier coach to understand win conditions. Just go, hey, this composition has a lot of damage. This composition doesn't, but they have a lot of dive heroes. So which team do you think wants to play fast? This one. So how do you think this team should be trying to play? Slow. And that's kind of the idea behind it. Do you have anything to add on top of that, SVB?
No, I think absolutely well said there. I just wanted to pause this here because we see the perfect example. They drop the Supercharger and then they immediately drop the Panic Shield, which shields nobody. And that's kind of, I think that encapsulates in that little frame. It's not that this player is inherently dumb or bad. It's that they haven't adapted to playing Orisa. You have to play Orisa like Orisa. Play any hero like that hero. But if you're going to play Orisa, you have to adapt. So bear in mind all the things we've spoken about, tempo and playstyle. Okay, so let's fast forward to the next fight. Again, they're doing a good job, which is to actually now this time they're contesting the high ground. So let's just quickly see how this fight pans out. That is a bizarre shield. We will not dwell on it. We'll call that an accident.
It's like they're trying to run in, but why are you trying to run in? You're running McCree and Hog.
Exactly. So there you go. The opening comes from the Hog, who actually gets hook off, but because they are a little bit overeager, and you can see they walk a little bit too far up before they're ready, they get knocked back by the Lucio straight on the point, and now the panic is going to begin again. Again, the panic shield drops, panic ultimates are being popped here. So because of a poor engagement, so this is where Overwatch is so much of a game about snowballs. One mistake leads to many mistakes. One poor mistake here, which is this random shield tossed up, and this desire constantly to push like a Reinhardt, forces a boop off the high ground, which then forces some panic shields, which then forces some panic ultimates. And now you're in a terrible position where you've given away every advantage your composition had, purely because you didn't really think before the fight about how you were going to approach it. So I think, as we see, this is the mess that ensues in 2CP maps. And
this is what the enemy team, they want you to be discombobulated. They want you to be in the middle of the action. They want to be up close and personal. And our Masori Koi or whatever is handing it to them. He's just handing them his entire team.
Yeah, exactly. So again, going back to the idea of what your comp wants versus what their comp. That's essentially what a win condition is how am I going to beat their comp? In this case, as you pointed out, Spilo, slow and steady, patience and control. These are the things that makes an Orisa. As a Reinhardt, and I speak as a Reinhardt main, you're all about the bloodthirst. You just like walk forward, swing, let me get some mother effers with my hammer, let me shatter some people. Orisa is much more about control. And dive comps obviously are much more about chaos. So don't give in to what they want. Don't fulfill their win condition for them. And here we go. Supercharger. Can you talk us through again, Spilo?
I mean, it's out in the open. It's out in the open. It's just immediately destroyed. So another thing too is it's like you can oftentimes you want to kind of place your Supercharger close to where you actually want to. Well, not close to where you want to fight, but if you like in this situation, because there's no real obvious cover that you could get. Not super great cover, at least in time. So you run out here, and they're kind of all over the place. So even putting it behind this little pole right here wouldn't be perfect, but it would be better. And what you could do in addition to that is you could shield right here, and then you could body block for your Supercharger. So you could actually pop your Supercharger, walk on top of it, and because the cover isn't great from all the angles, you can stand on top of it, shoot people on the point, touch the point, and just basically body block for your Supercharger to buy it a little bit more time. Instead, what happens is we place it with no cover at all, shield past it, and then walk past it and ignore it. And we just leave it alone. And then what happens? Well, their Doomfist just destroys it immediately. It doesn't have good shield cover. It's not behind any form of cover, and we're not even attempting to body block for it. Now, I understand that we had to rush to touch point, but even in that instance, it would have been better to run to point shield and better to bongo on point. I mean, at least you can body block for your bongo there. Not that would be great, but it's better than what we did there.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if we look at the shield here as well, as a main tank, essentially what you want to do is cover the gaps. You are the barrier. You are the gap plugger. So look at the number of gaps that are in the shield. You know, clearly someone can drop down here. Someone can walk around here. They can walk around from the other side. Too many gaps. You have to try and find a location basically where there's as few gaps as possible, and that's where natural cover is your friend. So this pillar, again, it's giving you some sort of angle, right? That's why natural cover is good, is that it alleviates some of the burden on your shield. And should your shield break, there's something for you to hide behind. Here, when your shield breaks, there's nothing to hide behind. You're absolutely out in the open, and there's so many gaps. Here, this pillar is already blocking off a significant angle, whereas, and then when it does break, you have something to hide behind. So yeah, I appreciate that this player understands that their Supercharger should be dropped at a slightly sneaky angle. They're just kind of misunderstanding exactly how they should do it. And another thing actually to bear in mind is that, of course, Supercharger requires line of sight. So I think where they drop it, actually, their team would have anyways. I think they drop it like here. And if a teammate goes here, for example, you've now cut line of sight.
Right,
so
right.
That's another thing to bear in mind, is that it is good to hide it, but don't hide it in such a place that your team is actually also out of LOS from it. In this case, it's irrelevant because it gets instantly destroyed. But again, shield straight out in the middle, too many gaps, not protecting something, not near natural cover. So these are the things you should constantly be looking out for as a main tank. And I think they're going to win out in the almighty brawl that ensues. But again, I would have to say this is despite the shield placement, not because of it.
Okay, so far we've definitely seen tempo to be a problem with this player, and the shield placement, specifically the shield placement, is part of the tempo. It's either we're shielding and then leaving our shield behind, or we're shielding, running in and shielding on top of the enemy team and then just kind of getting our backline annihilated. But do you have anything else major to add?
No, I think those are the things. Obviously, you don't want to be bogging people down with too much stuff. So I think these are what scream out at me, and these are the things that really will define what is acceptable Orisa play and what are just mistakes that can be easily exploited. So yeah, I think we're happy for the time being.
Okay,
we're gonna see.
I'm gonna interrupt you really quick. It's chat.
No, go.
Chat. Mental exercise. This is baby steps. What tempo do we want to play at, assuming that neither team swaps compositions? Read the situation, and then tell me what team wants to play fast, what team wants to play slow. And then so what would be our win condition into that? What do you guys think?
Don't let us down, chat. High hopes.
Yeah, that's right. Hopes. That's right. Come on, guys. Proud of you. Medium, slow. Okay, outpoke them. Right, we're slow. We have a Symmetra spam, we have Batiste, we have Mercy damage boost, and most importantly, we have Bastion and an Orisa who can shoot with that Bastion. Versus, I mean, this is basically scuffed dive. You know, this is like quad new age dive kind of going on here. So we could probably anticipate them either to dive this, we can anticipate them to try and apply point pressure and force us to rotate to point. We want to defend our high ground here. What do you think are some priorities for our Orisa in this kind of situation without assuming the enemy team doesn't swap here? What do you think that our Orisa needs to be focusing on?
Is this directed at me or the chat?
You. Sorry, I should have clarified.
But at this point, I'm turning into chat. I'm gonna start writing things.
Oh no.
Who's this guy? Boo. Anyways, so I mean, obviously with the Bastion is your best friend as a Orisa, and I know anyone who comes to me at sort of platinum and below, they're always telling me, SVB, man, how am I supposed to be Bastion bunker? Like, the shit is OP. And yeah, obviously it can be a bit nuanced because you can have to coordinate with your off tank. In this case, you have a Reinhardt who's also got a very nice meaty shield to protect your Bastion. So it's kind of important to decide between you and your off tank who's exactly doing what. In this case, you could theoretically just have your Reinhardt hold the shield and have you as Orisa maybe look other angles. But obviously, I would say the optimal way to play, your shield covers the main angle because it's the most durable, most easily refreshable, while your Reinhardt, whose shield can easily rotate, he's covering the off angles. If they come up the stairs, he's going to address that. Of course, he can go right up to the stairs, start swinging as well. If they decide to flank somehow, get to this high ground, he's going to cover that angle. And if they start rotating towards point, he's going to be the first one to go and address that issue. So your main job as Orisa is to protect your main source of damage. In this case, it is the Bastion.
Okay, perfect. So we will see how that goes.
So as you can see, I think it starts off well, but what's going to happen, I believe, is that they're going to take them by surprise a little bit, if I remember correctly. So so the cardinal sin is, I don't know why this player is looking around so much. The fight has just begun, and this player's already looking here to there. And look, why? Because right now they should be halting so that they can explode. If you pull everyone back, Bastion can just shred people so quickly, and instead, there's no halt that comes in here. As you can see, the Sigma shield actually breaks, and the only person who actually gets halted is a Sigma. Instead, if that was any of these guys, basically, apart from maybe the Wrecking Ball, any of these guys die. only these two people will probably survive. Maybe the Moira if she rates out, everybody else dies. So it's a small thing, but focus on the main source of where the enemy team is coming from.
Yeah,
where the main
this feels like the equivalent of a Reinhardt chasing a Tracer in the backline. Not your
exactly.
job.
Focus on your job, as you said, Spilo. In this case,
this shield placement.
Here you go. Talk us through, Spilo.
Oh no, I would much rather you yell at them. It's not my responsibility. I'm retired today.
Well, again, this is just mistake leads to another mistake. So the reason I was talking about paying attention is because what happens is this player gets taken by surprise once again by an unexpected boop. It's gonna come in a second now. Here we go. Knock off. Now they've thrown into a position. Why were you even looking here in the first place? Like I said, like we established, your job is to protect the Bastion. That is your role. So stick to your role. Instead, our player gets distracted, trying to hunt someone down. I'm not sure exactly who. Everybody's looking elsewhere than where they should be. So they're all looking somewhere else. Now they go chasing this Reaper. They get knocked down. Now when they get knocked down, they're going to panic shield.
The irony is that this player was probably, like, the only thing that this player needed to be turning on for was Hammond. And then the one thing that he didn't actually catch in the back line was Hammond. Like, the only thing that would have screwed you, the only reason for you to turn around is to, like, address a Hammond looking for a boop. And that's the one thing that you didn't actually catch.
Exactly. And that's where you save your Fortify for, right? That's exactly. Instead, we actually see a really wasteful, I think, use of Fortify. So this is, if you're paying attention now, you see it, you see someone coming to boop you, whether it's Hammond, whether it's Lucio, whoever it is, whether it's a Doomfist trying to punch you. You turn, you see them. Aha, I see you, sucker. Then that's when you Fortify. And then you're fine. You don't get knocked off the high ground. Instead, you're not paying attention. You get knocked off. Now you're in a dangerous position. Now they're going to panic Fortify after they've been slammed up. They're actually down by the time they Fortify. And now they're in a lot of trouble. This position, the shield, like I said, the panic sets in. And this happens to the best of players. You know, don't feel bad about panicking. We all panic. But if you don't get your fundamentals right, you will always end up in positions where you're forced to panic.
Okay.
If you've just done the fundamentals right, which is to sit there, shield, and then if they're rotating, you're covering the rotation angle. So when they start coming up the shield, you can tell your Bastion, hey Bastion, they're walking up this way. Let's shift our angle. Let's go. One second, we'll see when the player rotates. Here we go. So if they're rotating up the stairs, at this point we don't know exactly where they're going. We just know they're going towards the right. You say, hey Bastion, they're rotating. If they come up the stairs, we're probably fucked. Let's go here. Now we've got a good angle again. And if they go to point, well, we'll take this window here. So again, always maintain that tempo. All the things that we're kind of building here, Spilo. We're building the things we established on. Always maintain the tempo. Always maintain the advantage you have. Range, always keep it. So the closer they get, the further away you get. Trying to keep in control all the time. Always control the engagement. Instead, our player gets focused way too much on things that are not their job, as we established, and it starts a snowball situation that leads to them eventually.
I want to pause really quick. Where should this shield have been placed optimally?
If they're let's say you mean like let's say you're forced down,
unfortunate,
you got
whatever.
knocked down.
Where do we?
Yeah.
shield?
So again, always be looking for the corner. Always be looking for natural cover. Always be looking for the best angle. So we'll pause in a second here. Okay, so you're getting knocked down. Immediately in your mind, you should be thinking, okay, where am I going to go? Now that I'm getting knocked down, first thing you should be doing is going back towards point. Going here is no. There's a Reaper here. There's a Doomfist here. Why are you going here? Go towards point. Shield here.
Tempo.
Do not go closer to the Reaper. And that's exactly what our player does. They go closer to the Reaper. They're like, hey, let me get this guy. He's low. And then they move themselves into the range of the Doomfist and the Hammond. Thankfully, the Fortified this time saves them. And now the shield. So, again, think about where you're going to be, what type of player you are, what type of character you are. In this case, slow, distance. So, yeah, none of those things quite applied here. I think the Symmetra goes ham. So they managed to hold for this first fight. As you can see, the Symmetra absolutely beating people down. But as the Orisa player, you're looking back and you're gonna, you should be seeing a lot of things to change here. And now we're gonna see another example of, I think, again, not a natural main tank player. Why are you chasing this guy? Why are you chasing the Sigmas? And you're gonna see how far this actually goes. So they're gonna keep chasing the Sigmas, still 1 HP, still chasing. Everybody's alive by this point. Everybody's alive on the enemy team. We're 119 HP and we're still chasing the Sigma to the depths of the earth. Almost getting our Mercy killed.
That Mercy.
Yeah, the Mercy as well. Like, I have to pause for a minute, and I'm not sure. This is like, I'm going to tank for you, but I'm also going to heal you. So I'm not actually going to do. What is going on here? But anyway, I'm not going to be too mean, but
oh goodness,
yeah, this is a bit of a clown fiesta. This little particular engagement. And yeah, again, main tank players, discipline. Discipline is your #1 friend. Make sure you're not going anywhere you shouldn't be. Always be very, very focused on your objective. In this case, the Bastion, protecting the Bastion again, too long before the shield comes down. So the same problems, which is a good thing, right? It's always a good, I always say, Spilo, that if you're having the same problems said 10 times, that's better than having 10 different problems, because that one problem can be addressed much quickly. The same problem every time. The shield isn't down, it's not down in the right location, and we're constantly pushing forward too much, playing main tank like a DPS or an off tank, perhaps, like a diva almost. So yeah, again,
no.
Yeah, panic fortify. Again, just not fundamentally getting the cooldown right. And then look at the Reinhardt. We're going to see the Reinhardt. He's doing what a main tank should be doing. Look where he is. He's right next to his Bastion, protecting him. Where's our Orisa? Orisa is the one chasing kills. So I can definitely see the player is by nature an off-tank player, because they're playing it like a diva. They're hunting kills. They're trying to shut down flankers. No. When you're playing Orisa, stick by your, the main area where your team wants to be and protect your teammates. That's what your main job is. And look how long we go without placing a shield. I don't want to do the countdown because that'll be mean, but that was like a good 10 seconds with no shield.
And again, what did that shield accomplish? Like, look at us. Look. Oh my.
See, again, panic and again knockdown. So the snowball effect once again occurs if we go all the way from here. So we're going to see a panic fortify in a second here for no reason. Because you put yourself in a bad position, you put your shield in a bad position. Now you drop another panic shield, and now you don't have fortify, you get knocked off. They could easily win this fight. For this time being, they're at a player advantage because they've just killed you for effectively 5 or 6 seconds. So you're giving these guys advantages by putting yourself out of position, right? Never make the enemy team work for every advantage they get. Never give them anything. The fewer mistakes you make, the more you basically make the enemy team work for every advantage they get. In this case, we're giving it away. And this death is entirely avoidable. I think we're going to see them lose the point at this stage. I think, will they get back in time? Okay, they do get back. But again, I think by the time we get back, we're going to go straight onto the low ground.
Right. We've already lost our advantage. We've lost a lot of map controls, so we're getting surrounded.
And again, the same shield that we saw on attack. Walking in and then just dropping the first chance you get. Again, not covering any angles, not actually protecting any teammates. This is actually only protecting. Actually, it's not even protecting our Orisa. Our Orisa isn't even protected by the shield because you've narrowed the angle too much. You've made it almost a horizontal shield.
Would you have liked going to let me see here? Would you have preferred our Orisa here to go to like back a point here or back here and shield in this angle here?
Yeah, I would go here.
Okay.
I mean, I would have probably been asking my team, guys, can we take the high ground again? If they say nah, we can't, then I would go here because this is nicely tucked away. There's natural cover from this side. They have to come all the way around to actually get to you, and on this side you have a lot of range. So I would definitely go this side. I don't know about you, Spilo.
No, I would agree. Yeah.
So you can see when they have distance, they're fine, they're comfortable, and then when they actually close the distance, you're now not comfortable, right? That's the principle what we're trying to talk about. Again, Supercharger, dead in the open, gonna get destroyed probably soon. Although actually, I think they're too busy focusing the Bastion. But again, this is a fight won despite the shield placement, and again, we're gonna go chasing kills.
And the thing is, just like, okay, if you're gonna chase kills, at least have the wherewithal to not use your shield. Like, how many times have we seen this person use shield and then run past their shield? It's like, okay,
exactly, yeah.
If you're going to do that, at least hold on to your shield to where you actually want to take the fight.
Yeah, and you can see the instincts of the Reinhardt are much more naturally inclined. No. So the fight is won, and they think, okay, let's set back up, because we saw when they came back from spawn, they had to go straight onto the low ground, which is suboptimal for their composition because they were already at a disadvantage. Now the fight is won, you have the perfect chance to reclaim high ground, but the player prioritizes chasing kills, which takes time away from you, right? If they suddenly sped through now, you have no time to go through back to the high ground. So take this chance to reset. You've just nearly lost a fight. Take this chance to get back up. And that's what our Reinhardt players recognize. They're already there shielding our Bastion. And now, Spilo, you were already crying out there. So do you want to talk us through
I mean, like again, we talk about the win condition. The win condition is to play slow. We just talked about how high ground allows you to spam down, how they want to prioritize point pressure and brawl on point, but you don't have to do that. I mean, they barely have one tick. You still have 2 ticks to give. You could set up on point or on high ground, wait until they touch, give them a tick if necessary, and then drop with your fortify and just shield yourself into a corner and let your Reinhardt shield your bastion, right? But at least let your Bastion and Symmetra do some work first. And then we drop before they even get to point. And we've already used our Fortify, and we don't have a shield. And we still have 2 ticks to give. And this is last fight. So, like,
yeah,
you're playing, like, it's all of your decisions are coming from you wanting to play fast, and that's not what you want to do. So...
Absolutely. And again, the same problem cropping up there. We just haven't identified the tempo. And this is something I see very often when I run some pugs for the players in my Discord. And quite often when it gets to like last fight territory, I think everybody's judgment suddenly goes a little bit whack.
Yeah.
And people panic super easily. There's no provocation here to drop. Take your time. Take your time. Put a shield here. Again, remember your Bastion can out spam any of these guys, can burn any of these shields. Take your time. Set up on the high ground. Wait for them to actually be in a threatening position. Like you said, they've dropped before the fight. They're getting... Go on, Spilo.
I mean, like you said, there's the snowball effect right there. We drop from high ground. We don't protect our Bastion as well as we could have, and then we get frozen and killed when we shouldn't have. Blizzard should have gotten no value at all, and yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and at worst, the Blizzard should get 1 kill, right? Like, let's say you tell someone, hey, you go point, Reinhardt, you go point. I'm sitting here with the Bastion, you go point. And if the Reinhardt gets frozen, fine. He's frozen, even if he dies, fine. You're the rest of your main core is still up. One thing I'll applaud the Orisa player for is that they understood to look down and hide their head hitbox. So that's a good decision there. And in another scenario, maybe that saves your life.
Well, at least it takes a lot more effort to kill you, which is good.
Exactly. But again, the panic sets in, the lack of recognition of how you're going to win this upcoming fight. You're going to win this fight by letting your Bastion kill people, not by running on the point and brawling with them. And that's exactly what happens. They brawl, they win the fight because their composition obviously wanted to do that. And if you could easily have full held this, and instead we're going to see this game as a loss, but this could have been a full hold. And if just that decision had been taken, this could easily, and these are the small things that result in your SR being different over the course of a season. That one decision maybe wins you this game. That's 25 SR higher than in fact 50 SR, because instead of, let's say you're 100, instead of going to 125, you go down to 75. So you've almost the effect of 50 SR has happened there.
Right. I want to kind of pause and read comps here. So we have swapped to like Brig, Genji. We're off the Bastion. They now have a Kree. So in terms of like tempo wise, it's a little bit kind of could go either way. But I think you made a good point earlier in the fact that your hero, even if it's close, you always default to what your hero generally wants to do. Right, so in this instance, okay, which team plays better in the slow war? I don't really know. It's pretty close. You got a Hog and a Widow, but you have a Brig, right? And they have the Lucio, which theoretically has more spam, and they also have the Kree, and they have the Sigma. So, but if it's close and you're not sure, what does your hero generally want to do? You said Reinhardt likes to swing and go crazy. Orisa likes to play slow and shoot shields and halt and stuff like that. So in that instance, I think when you're in doubt, you kind of default to your hero's default playstyle. Am I kind of correct in there, or what do you think?
No, I absolutely 100% agree. I think your only 2 options here are either you commit to the full swap and you say, hey guys, let's go full dive. These guys went dive hero, so let's us go full dive as well. If not, if you're in a position where you're still running Orisa Hog, then okay, well, we're the tank line. We're Orisa Hog. We're going to play the way Orisa Hog does. What are you going to gain by... you can't suddenly start jumping back lines with Orisa now, right? Like, it's not possible. So, yeah, like you said, default to what your character does best. Particularly in solo queue if you feel like your team are doing random things. Now, this Reinhardt hard throws here by charging in. Never do this, guys. Never blind charge halfway across the point with... Orisa waiting to fortify you and a tremendous amount of spam damage waiting to come in.
And he can't get healing either through that Orisa shield.
Nope. So this is a nicely won fight for our team, thanks to the enemy Ryan throwing there. But yeah, so far this is fine. I think what we're going to see though again is our player is pushing too far forward. You can see they're going edging closer and closer. They're getting more and more itchy to get in their face. And what's going to happen now is our Brigitte is going to die because we've misled our Brigitte.
That, right? You encourage that with his shield positioning.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly. As a main tank, is your job to tell your team where to go, essentially, right? And your shield and your positioning is telling your team, hey guys, come here. I'm taking this space for you. So by coming up all the way to the front and dropping a shield here, you're telling your team, this is where I'm going to hold. Of course, they're going to come all the way up here with you. And then if you suddenly decide to back up, as our player does, and our player should have done all along, they should always have been back where they are now. They should always have been back here. But our Brigitte didn't get the memo. So she's still here swinging away because she sees the shield and she thinks that's where we're holding. And then they just walk past the shield because that's what their comp can do, and she gets deleted. So that's already one of our supports is dead. And now we've just abandoned this position entirely. We've just sort of said, fuck it, I'm out of here. It's right now, it's the SpongeBob meme where it's just like, I'm a head out. And they've headed out the high ground. And now, again, the panic. This fight is super, super messy. There's no coordination. Nobody's alive even anymore to hide behind this Orisa shield. All because of that one decision. And of course, we're being harsh. Being harsh is good sometimes because that's how you learn. But it's not always fair to blame just the person we're watching, but in this case, certainly highly avoidable. You've led your team into a dark alley here by that shield positioning alone.
So there's he or she is saying in chat, a couple of the bad decisions were good intentions leading to poor play. Well, I think what SVB is saying is that a lot of the times it seems like you have good intentions, but that's not what Orisa does. Like, you're not reading the tempo. It's might be good intentions, but it's like trying to feed chocolate to a dog or something like that. But you don't do that. Like, I know what you're trying to do, but you don't do that. So you're lacking the information, or you're just not thinking about it in the way that you need to be. So good intentions are nice, and people not being in voice chat or yada. Well, who cares? Who gives a rip? Like, I'm looking at this, and SVB is looking at this without any comms at all, and like, none of this seems to be terribly comm related, just you not knowing the Orisa is going to generally default to a slower playstyle, and especially when you're playing a spam comp, you also need to be playing slower. Do you have anything to add there, SVB? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that with things like this, it's not about, who's bad, who's dumb, who deserves to be X rank, who deserves to be lower. It's not that we're saying that this player is dumb or doing things badly. They're just playing their hero like a different hero, and that's what the problem is, right? If you were Reinhardt, doing that would be a good principle, pushing forward, trying to get stagger kills, trying to drive your team on. But if you play Orisa, you have to adapt. And this is the same for any hero. Right now we're watching Orisa, but should you have picked a different hero, you have to then change your playstyle. Don't play Overwatch the same way with the 30 characters or whatever it is that they are. You have to change mid-fight, mid-game, depending on what your hero is, depending on what their hero is. So that's the fundamental mistake here. The mistake isn't that this player doesn't know how to play Overwatch. They just haven't recognized what their specific hero should be doing.
Okay, so I guess last fight coming up here. Okay, again, I'm probably going to be playing a slower tempo. We have that Symmetra, we have that Orisa Hog, we have the Ana and the Mercy, so...
Yeah, and I think what was going to happen here is that they're going to get bamboozled by the Symmetra TP. And I think the panic will set in once more. So yeah, I think they hear this teleporter go down. Oh, crap. Uh-oh, everybody's on point. And then here we go. Geronimo, drop we go. And now the brawl begins. Now it's an absolute mess. Like, look at the screen. It's an absolute carnage right now. What are you supposed to do as Orisa except just hold left click and run around and hope something happens? And eventually I think they actually just get knocked off point. And they don't even actually all wipe here. They just run out of time.
Unfortunate. That was well played by the enemy team, though. Like, they had the capability to force a brawl really fast because there was only one tick to give. Do you have anything that you think that we could have done better there? Do you think we should have stayed high ground there? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is tough. I mean, we've all been victim to this, right? I can't say that I've never been in a game and something like this hasn't happened to me. But if we're looking at it from a super, super critical point of view, first of all, planning. Talking through the possibility, particularly when I play Orisa, and if it's like a one-tick scenario, I'm going to talk through with my team beforehand what's going to happen. I'm going to say, guys, if they run a Symmetra, this is what we're going to do. Obviously, that's not that plan isn't discussed in this scenario. Personally, I would have liked to again stay up here and let the Hog do some damage. Let the Symmetra is already on point, right? Again, with the way point mechanics works, is only one person needs to be on at a time. So there's nothing gained by you dropping as well, particularly because you're not effective at that range. From here, you can do a lot more. So I would be inclined to maybe sit up here for a little bit longer and try and just get a pick or two before I'm then forced to go. And then, of course, we go back to the principles of shield positioning. Rather than dropping here, drop to the side, drop to the corner there. If this red line will let me make. Drop to the corner, drop to try and make it to this corner. Don't drop in their face. Again, tempo. Figure out what the best way you're going to win this fight is. And it's not to drop.
I think
right
a halt here would have also been useful if we could have like theoretically we could have saved our halt here and not really gone for this halt up top. Instead, we drop here and then we can halt them back this way, halt them away to kind of slow down that tempo.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I guess that wraps it up, man. I really appreciate you doing this. I guess if you could wrap up to the Orisa player, any couple of things, obviously, to focus on, what do you think you would choose in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, as we've spoken about before, the main kind of themes here are shield positioning, management of the shield, of like your positioning around the shield as well, and then tempo, understanding your win conditions. So generally, I would just say it's clear that you said you're not a main tank player. It's clear that your instincts are that of an off tank player. You're trying to push forward. You're trying to chase kills. But if you're going to play main tank, and if you're going to be forced to play Orisa and ladder, make sure you're adapting how you're going to play differently. In this case, make sure your shields always cover a corner. They're always near natural cover. And with Orisa, always try and be as far away as you realistically can, because you're trying to play to your character's strengths, trying to win out on the long advantage, the slower fights, not the rush brawl fights that you seem to be naturally more inclined to taking. Anything to add, Spilo?
No, I think that's perfectly said. So, okay, well, SVB, I really appreciate it, man. If you guys haven't checked out SVB's content, he's really good at what he does. He has some really interesting videos, and I think some of the biggest things that I've enjoyed about your videos are the fact that they're like some of the concepts you talk about, like what I learned as a GM player in Gold, how Smurfs aren't ruining your games, different things like that, aren't topics that other YouTubers have touched on. They're unique in that aspect, and so I think like you provide not only an educated but a unique perspective on a lot of really educational things. So I appreciate your contributions, man. I appreciate you hopping on here, and I will be sure to plug your stuff afterwards for those of you who haven't checked it out. The command !guest does give his YouTube, but there's also Twitch, Twitter, Discord, the whole 9 yards. So all right, man. Thank you so much for joining me, and you have a good rest of your Saturday.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Well, what date is it? No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I've been wanting to get this collab done for a while actually, and I've still been meaning to hit you up for a video, which I'm trying to cook something up, and I'll let you know in the near future. But thanks so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and enjoy the rest of your stream and the rest of your evening. Catch you guys later.
All right, thank you so much, man. Cheers.
All right, see ya.